We can.
We can't hear you. He's a mime, but that's all right. He's going to tell us right through miming. And he's got the game. Is that the Philly game on in the background? I see a Philly shirt back there. He figures his sound out real quick. Let me tell you, he's got a company called the Sports Profits. I've been tracking these guys for years, and these guys are extremely high percentage winners. And that's what he does. He's a handicapper. This guy started back in the early 2000s. Started back in the days of I don't even remember when video poker was not video poker, just poker was all over there. The Poker Palace, and I remember that somebody Party poker. Yeah, that's what it was. And where'd you go? You went down to Costa Rica or somewhere, didn't you? And you were kind of rocking it out down there with all this.
Costa Rica. Used to live all over Florida. Can you guys hear and see me good before we get rolling?
Yeah, your volume's a little low. I'm going to try to see if I can bring you up on my end. We'll see. I got this fancy equipment now, man. I am literally, but I don't know how to work it. That's the problem. But I'm going to try to bring you up. So go ahead. So tell us. Here's where I got you. You're the man.
Yeah.
High percentages. You were in Costa Rica starting out. Tell us your story and teach me, because I know nothing about college football, but I do like to win some money. So I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy.
I'll give you awesome. Thank you so much, AJ. Appreciate being on here. I never even heard about, before I get into myself or anything, I never even heard about No Filter until you told me about it. And it's pretty great. I mean, so far so good. Can you guys hear me clear?
Yeah, I can hear you. Everybody else, chat room, Reese, yeah?
Okay, great.
I can hear you.
All right.
So No Filter looks amazing, first of all, and I think I might want to start my own show on it. So, but yeah, so no, I started in the online gambling world, doing poker, doing blackjack, whatever I could. Me, a bunch of my buddies, we used to rack up in one room, get on a Wi-Fi, and just crush the tables. And then I started to see that you could make a lot more money and be a lot more consistent with sports betting. But even in my own foray into doing it, at first I wasn't a winner. At first I wasn't really making it happen. And then I everything clicked, and I realized, well, in the world of poker, you're by yourself. You can't have somebody come up to the table, tell you something in your ear. You can't have assistants. You can't use electronic devices. But in the world of sports betting, you could do whatever you want. You could call whoever you want. You could pay whoever you want. You can reach out to whoever you want. You can get advice from whoever you want. So it's not so much about me. And you use the word handicapper. I hate the word handicapper, but most people don't.
Sorry, man. I grew up at the racetrack, so that's a racetrack word.
Well, it's a sports betting word too, but what I am more of, I consider myself an information gatherer. So I use sources. I use other handicappers, friends, colleagues, people in the industry, and it's more of a collective. So what I do is collect information from different places and bring it all together. So I have a team of handicappers. I have guys underneath me that are working for me and then delivering me that information. But I don't like talking about myself. What I will say is this. On YouTube in 2021, this year, we're around 60, 62%, but in 2021 is something I was very proud of. On free YouTube games, we went 67%. We went...
What are free YouTube games? What are free YouTube games?
So great question. So I have a YouTube channel. If you, I think I sent you the link, AJ. And about 5 to 6 times a week, I release a game. I break down a game against the spread. I break down a game money line sometimes a total. And we do it for free. We put it out there, and it's for anyone who wants to watch it. And in 2021, on those games, 67%. Now, I'm not telling anyone to bet $1,000 a piece on my YouTube games. But if you bet $1,000 a piece on the YouTube games in 2021, you would have made about $60,000 wins minus losses, including the juice on the games.
That's pretty damn good.
I have a lot to cover. I know you're not a sports betting channel, and I just have so much.
No, I wanted someone to come on and do this, and you're the first guy I thought of. So, and after I announced you, FYI, on Twitter, I had 5 sports betting people. Everybody claims to be good. and I turned a couple down and just ignored the rest because I know what you're capable of. So teach me. I'm gonna bet on some NCAA football this weekend, and I know where people that you know live. So if you give me those free bets that don't work out, I'm gonna send Reese around to collect my loathings.
We have 5 college football games I'm going to break down today. Before I get into that, I want to talk about baseball, betting baseball for 1 second. And you're a baseball guy,
Oh, I love it.
so
I dig that you have the Phillies on for me.
The Phillies and the Marlins, your team and my team, right?
I like it.
So the sticky stuff. Talking about bullpens, I am most people won't tell you this. I have been getting crushed in baseball since they made these pitching rule changes. The only baseball that I've been successful with in the last 2 years is first 5 innings because the bullpens are absolutely unpredictable ever since they made all of these rule changes with the sticky stuff going up to the pitcher in the middle of the game, checking his glove and everything. It has made significant changes. You see the scores, you see the over-unders, you see baseball scores 21-7. That's a football score, not a baseball score. So one thing, just touching on baseball before I get into college football, first 5 innings is where I've been finding the success for the last couple of years. So anybody, you guys out there betting baseball, finding that you're finding these pitching matchups that seem good, but then all of a sudden they go south. To me, stick with the first 5 inning and you'll get a lot more success. So that's my baseball betting tip of the day. And I guess you want me to get into these college football games next, right?
Yeah, they let it rip. I know nothing. Teach me.
Okay.
Teach me because if I go out there, I'm going to lose my money.
So before I get into my breakdown games, I'm going to go over some things that newbies in college football betting and just football betting in general, they succumb to and not to succumb to. Number one, don't be afraid to buy the point or buy the half a point. Do you know what that means, AJ, Maurice?
Well, you're talking about like with teasers, yes? Or no?
I'm talking about this first game I'll get into here. We're going with the UCF Knights versus the Louisville Cardinals. Full disclosure, I went to UCF, so I do have a little bit of a bias with this team. But they've been
Knights.
They've been a great team for the last few years. They had that 25-game run with Scott Frost before he went to Nebraska.
Oh, I gotta say something when it comes to the Knights real quick. A couple years ago when y'all had that undefeated season, I got so pissed off with the NCAA because I'm like, let me get this bullshit straight. We have Georgia and Bama, both one-loss teams. They're in the championship. Both got beat by Auburn, but then Auburn just gets beat by the Knights, who were undefeated.
We're national champions, baby. We're national champions as far as I'm concerned. They actually declared themselves national champions, if you saw that. But yeah, the Scott Frost era was very good. He's in Nebraska now, getting crushed. I feel bad for the guy. He should have never left.
That's what you get for leaving.
He should have never left. But let me get into this game. So UCF Louisville. I'll do some against this, but let me say this about college betting and why I like it. In football, NFL versus college football programs matter way more. History matters way more. Trends matter more. In NFL, you have professionals. They come out there every day to do their job, and last year is not this year. Whereas in college football, you rely on crowd a lot more. You rely on there's certain games that a coach knows how to get his team up for that game. And when you can track that and you can find those games and find those trends, it's a lot easier to make money in college football, for me at least, in my history, than NFL. The spread. The second game that we're doing, which is the Bama Texas game, I'll talk about this a little bit more. But the spread matters for college football teams. Margin of victory doesn't matter in the NFL. It matters in college football. These legacy coaches like the Nick Sabans and so on and so forth, they care whether they cover the spread or not. Believe me, they do. Whereas in the NFL, these coaches, they don't care about covering the spread. They care about winning the game. But when you're going into a season and you know that you are expected to win every single game, all of a sudden now that you're already expected to win every game, now your new goal is covering every spread. So spreads matter in football. Let me get into this UCF Louisville game. UCF against the spread in their last 6 games, 4-2. At home, straight up in their last 8 games, 8-0. They are a powerhouse in what's called the bounce house because of the way the stadium moves so much when the students jump up and down. They actually call it the bounce house. It has one of the highest bounce rates of any stadium. It's one of the loudest stadiums, and their home field advantage is lights out.
You have UCF?
Yeah.
UCF.
With the bounce house?
With the bounce house, yes.
My kid will love that. I know what we're doing this weekend.
you have well, when I say bounce house, that's what their their stadium is called.
No, I get it, but I'll just tell her we're going to a bounce house and give her a hot dog, and she'll be all right.
There you go. So Louisville, they really haven't been the same since Bobby Petrino left, since Lamar Jackson was there. Just not the same team. They're 2-5 against the spread in their last 7. They're 2-9 straight up in their last 11 road games. They do not travel well. Yes, they did beat UCF last year, but UCF started their year off very rocky last year, and they closed it strong versus Louisville, who just fell apart last year. So I'm looking at UCF, and this is another example of buying the points. UCF just beat South Carolina State 56-10. Gus Malzahn, their head coach, he's a more experienced coach than Louisville's coach. I think he's going to be taking this team back to their glory days from a couple years ago. This is a team that's getting a lot of recruits. Louisville is not. I'm looking at Malik Cunningham for Louisville. That's their bright spot. He's their bright spot for the whole team. But besides him, I don't see much else happening there. I'm looking at UCF's quarterback, Rhys Plumlee. I don't even know if I'm saying that correct, and I'll get into players in a second here. But Rhys Plumlee for UCF, he's actually, with his one game, he's tied for 9th in QBR with his numbers that he put up. So he looks great. Gus Malzahn has a lot of experience at head coach. This UCF team covers spreads, but even more so, they cover spreads and they win at home. The line started off at 5.5. It's teetering to 6, teetering to 6.5. So this is important. In college football, if you see a line starting at 5.5, moving to 6.5, that's a good sign. Move the line back to 5.5 from 6.5. What if UCF wins the game by 6? Then you play 6.5 and you lose. It's stupid. 5.5 is a safe, smart line. You only lay 130 juice to do so. Play UCF 5.5. UCF minus 5.5. That's my.
So how much can you buy the spread down? How much can you buy the points down?
Good question. So I personally have a rule. I try not to buy more than 1.5 points. You're generally paying anywhere between 10 and 20% on each half a point, depending on if it's a key line. So to move a line from 6.5 to 5.5, if you're betting, let's say $100, you're gonna have to lay 130 to win back 100. Versus if you were betting it straight up, you'd be laying 110 to win back 100. So moving it from 6.5 to 5.5. You're paying 20 cents on the dollar. I believe it's worth it. The data also backs it up. Now, there are handicappers out there that will argue with me about this.
Oh, don't use that word. That's not a good word, handicappers. You don't like that word.
That's why they're handicappers. I'm not. But if you look at my 2021, and I say 2021 because it's a complete year. If you look at my complete year in 2021, I have you go to my YouTube video because I have a saying: buy the hook, buy the hook, buy the hook. And that's basically buying the hook is buying the half a point, but we buy the points and we still are profitable because we know the situations to do it. I'm going to dig into my next game if you're cool with that, AJ.
Yeah, good. Keep going.
Alabama, Texas. All right.
So let me stop you for 1 second. There's one thing I know. Alabama's good, right?
Yeah.
It's funny.
No, that's the good Waves, the Go Waves or something.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. That was
Roll
close.
Tide.
All right.
Wow, you really are a college football guy, AJ. I love it. So I'm going to do college football on your show every week if you don't mind.
There you go. Let's put your show on our channel and you can run your own show doing it.
There you go. Alabama is the best team in college football notoriously for the last 10 or 15 years. They have the best head coach, Nick Saban. very well-known guy. Their program's well-known. Last year against the spread, they went 7-6. Not great. Now, they still went to the national championship game. If you followed my channel last year, early in the season, I predicted Georgia to win it all. I predicted Georgia to play Alabama in the national championship game. And before the national championship game, I did a game breakdown where I predicted Georgia was going to cover that spread. So I had it on point last year. Now, real quick, I think it's going to be Alabama and Georgia again this year. Bold statement early on, but that's just my opinion. That being said, last year, everybody was laughing at Nick Saban because he said this was a rebuilding year for us. Now, think about this. The guys went to the national championship game and lost, and the head coach said this was a rebuilding year for us. Cocky, right? I think so. But guess what? I believe it. The year before last, they went 8-2 against the spread. Last year, they went 7-6 against the spread. Think about this for a second. This year, if last year was a rebuilding year, he knows something. They're gonna kick ass this year. So they're 20. They opened up as 19-point favorites. They're around 20-point favorites against the Aggies. They are notoriously, first of all, 60% against the spread over the last decade, which is always a safe bet. They beat Utah State last week 55-0, which was the biggest margin of victory for a week 1 game in Nick Saban's career. So they mean business this year. Texas, on the other hand, 0-5 against the spread as underdogs, 2-6 against the spread in their last 6 games overall. So these are numbers where I look at, and Alabama has the favorite for the Heisman Trophy, Bryce Young. I'm going with Alabama all day. This is another one. If you have this at 21 or you have it at 20.5, move it down to 19.5. It's safe. It's the right thing to do. But Bryce Young, Heisman Trophy winner, most likely, unless something crazy happens, he's going to take care of it. Now, the one bright
Now, are you throwing this? Because I've seen other guys do this. They say the absolute lock of the freaking decade on planet Earth. Is that this game or no? This is just you really like this game, but it's not.
In my office, if one of my consultants say the word lock, I suspend them for a day. There's no such thing as a lock, but I see where you're coming from. I like Bama. Of these 5 games I'm about to break down, they're not my favorite, but I like them. I think it's a strong play. They cover spreads. I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah, so you say the Horns will get hooked, in other words.
I think the Horns are going to get hooked. I think, like I said, the bright spot for Texas is their quarterback, and they have the receiver. They have Bijan Robinson, so they have a little bit of bright spot action. Quinn Ewers is. A lot of people think he's a sleeper for the Heisman. If Quinn Ewers, and I'm going to make this statement, if Quinn Ewers shows out in this Texas-Alabama game, it could change the landscape and it could cause Texas to cover the spread. But Alabama's going to win the game, but I think they're going to cover the spread as well. Moving right into UNC Georgia State. Did anyone see the UNC game last week? UNC Appalachian State.
Yeah, it's like they're pretty. Yeah, even though I'm like slightly closer to Duke than I am UNC, but yeah, we're all like within the triangle regardless. So.
Okay, yeah, the UNC game last week, it was 63-61. It was an absolutely insane game. But UNC gave up 40 points in 1 quarter in that game. Their defense is suspect. They're playing Georgia State. Georgia State's 7-2 against the spread in the last 9. They're 4-1 straight up in the last 5. UNC's 3-7 against the spread in their last 10. Now, the reason I talk about these trends don't matter as much in the NFL, but they matter in college football. College football has a tendency of history repeating itself. That's why I love betting it. But yeah, anytime you see a defense give up 40 points in 1 quarter, you got to be careful. Georgia State last year, they started off a little slow, but they just crushed at the end. They covered a bunch of spreads. I think they covered their last 5 or 6 spreads of the year. They coming right into it, and they're going to do it again. So I'm looking at Georgia State, same thing. They're +7. If you have them at +6.5, buy it to +7.5. I know I sound like a broken record, but that's important in college football because if Georgia State loses by 7, you win at 7.5. I had this, and I'm going to talk about FanDuel real quick. I hope we don't get sued for saying this, but I hate FanDuel. There's a lot of legal sports books coming out right now. FanDuel sets it up for the players to lose. They don't let you buy points. You have to play alternative lines, which makes it very difficult. In baseball, my favorite baseball plays are minus a half a run in the first half or plus a half a run in the first half. FanDuel doesn't give those out for the most part. I had a client this week, 2 games that I gave him. Cincinnati plus 7.5. He could only get it at 6.5, so he didn't play it. Good thing he didn't, because he would have lost. And then a first 5 innings baseball game that he could only play at first 5 innings minus 1.5 runs. Bottom line is stay away from FanDuel. If you have other options in your state where sports betting is legal and you're using one of, BetMGM, DraftKings, whatever the case may be, FanDuel is putting players at a serious disadvantage. So that's free advice that anyone that's watching. I don't want FanDuel to come after me for defamation, but their lines are just not fair. And it's not something I like to see, because at the end of the day, this is people's money on the line.
Hey, F FanDuel.
2 more games. We got Mississippi State versus Arizona. Mississippi State 6-2 against the spread in their last 8. 6-1 against the spread on the road in the last 7. And in week 2, 6-0 against the spread. So why does week 2 matter? The reason why week 2 matters is Mississippi State is an SEC team. And one thing I love to bet are SEC teams playing out of their conference early in the season. They tend to crush. I mean, the SEC is just the best conference, college football, no questions asked. They tend to crush whoever they're playing out of the conference. Now, don't get me wrong. Mississippi State, as far as within the SEC, they're more at the bottom tier. But when they come out of their conference and play out of conference teams, they do well. On the other side of the ball, Arizona, they are 5-2 against the spread in their last 7. That's a great thing. But guess what? That's against their division, their conference. Early in the season, they lack. They're 1-4 against the spread in September. They're 0-5 against the spread in week 2. So once again, why does week 2 matter? Because Arizona is playing out of conference teams in these early weeks, because that's how the matchups come down, and they're getting crushed. Worst for Arizona, in their last 20 games overall, they're 2-18. This is a team in Mississippi State that's favored here by 11 right now. Once again, buy it down to 10, minus 10. Buy it down to 9.5 if you can. Because they win by 10, you want to be a winner, not a push, right? And another thing with Mississippi State is they have Will Rogers returning. So one thing with college football is I like to look for these big-time key players that were doing well the year before. Once again, history repeats itself with college football. You got a great quarterback doing well the year before, and he's coming back. There's no reason not to ride him. So Mississippi State minus 9.5, guys. Maybe AJ will put all my picks up here at the end for everyone that's not following to go over. Just
I will. I'll put them in the recap, and they'll be up tomorrow. Podcast everywhere, all the info.
So many people fast forward me, and they just go to the end for that breakdown on my video. So I know that's how it goes, and I don't mind it. Last game is BYU versus Baylor. This is an interesting pick for me. Baylor is doing very well right now. They're 5-1 against the spread in their last 6. They're 9-0 in September versus BYU team who's 3-6 against the spread in their last 9, but 7-1 against the spread against Big 12 opponents. And BYU also does very well in September, 7-0. Now, BYU game, it's a little bit different breakdown. It's my last game, by the way. You have Blake Shapen, who's coming in for Baylor. He's replacing Bohannon, and it's his second career game on the road. I don't know how well he's going to fare. BYU is what I call a fishy favorite. BYU's a 3.5-point favorite. A lot of the signs here point to Baylor. Baylor beat them last year 38-24. Why is BYU the favorite? This is one of the situations where you look at a line, and sometimes you got to throw everything else out the window and say, I think the odds makers might know something here. So they're 3-point favorites. On a situation like this, guys, I like to go with BYU, but just play it on the money line. Minus 150. So you got to lay 150 to win 100, but all you need them to do is win the game. They could win by 1, 2, 3, 20. It doesn't matter. If you got BYU going into the final minute with down a point and they score a field goal and win by 2, you don't want to be a loser. You don't want to be on that bad beat column. So if you play it on the money line, you are successful there and you are a winner.
All right, so tell us real quick. I know. So your website is thesportsprofits.com.
Sportsprofits.com.
Your IG.
Sportsprofits_.
Yeah, and your IG, and one way to tell if somebody's legit, just go look at their followers on Instagram. They get 25,000 followers on there, so
So look at our commenters. We have fans that have been following us, just like you guys have fans been following us for years on the YouTube. YouTube is where I put really my heart and soul. The Instagram videos, I don't put the full videos on there. YouTube is really where I want everyone to go. Instagram's great, but YouTube, if you want to follow us and you want to see what we're all about, follow our YouTube for sure. Before you guys kick me off, I want to touch on a couple other things about.
All right, and the YouTube is the Sports Profits on YouTube.
The Sports Profits, yes.
Okay, no underscore. All right.
The link is long, but yeah, it's just the Sports Profits. So sports betting just became legal in different states. In Jersey, it's been legal for 6 years. Certain states, it just became legal in January. Eventually, it's like marijuana. It's going to be legal in every state pretty soon, right?
Yeah, it was legal here for like 20 days.
Yeah, right? And then the whole thing with the Seminole tribe, yeah, it was crazy. I had clients who opened up accounts with the Hard Rock, had money in there, and then boom, they're shut down. They got refunded their money. Hopefully it'll be back soon. That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah. But here's what I wanted to say. Legalization. So legalization, one big thing. This is huge for everybody that's watching. Stay the hell away from parlays. All these sports books are advertising parlays right now because they know that's how, number one, that's what entices people. Oh, you can lay down $5 and win back 500. But at the same time, that's how they make all their money because you can't really make a profit betting parlays. Put it this way. If you have a game, and let's just say it's 50-50, either team can win, it's a flip of a coin, you're going to make double your money on that bet, right? You're going to lay down 100, you're going to win 200. Now, if you have two teams, same thing, 50-50, flip of a coin, probability says you have a 25% chance of winning both games, but parlays only pay out 2.5 to 1. If a two-team parlay paid out 4 to 1, I would bet them every single day. But because they only pay out 2.5 to 1, it's a way of the sports book manipulating the mind of the sports bettor. So my best advice, they're advertising parlays right now. That's going to get cracked down on. Don't bet parlays, guys. Don't be afraid to buy points if you need to. And cash out. So one great thing about legalization that the old school bookies never did, the Costa Rican books never did, is they give you the ability, if you're winning a game and the game's not over, you can actually cash out your bet. You might not make the full amount, but play it safe and cash out. That's the one feature of these new legal sports books that I absolutely love. So I would say take advantage of it. Avoid bad beats. You got a few minutes left in the game. You can make the majority of your bet. Just cash it out. And whatever happens the rest of the game doesn't matter.
Yeah, I want to have you back at some point and talk about in-game or live betting, because when the book came out here, when the Hard Rock Sports book came out here for a few weeks, I jumped on. I have this weird gift with basketball. I don't like it, but you can just give me the paper, give me a week, let me follow the trends, and I am just a monster with NBA basketball, and then also with the tournament when it comes around. But what I thought was really cool was back in my day when I started, I used to have to make a phone call up to New York, and everything was in code. This is Nails calling for cats. Give me 30 times on Phoenix, all that sort of stuff. Now you got in-game and this and that, and you can change the lines during the game and for the next 2 minutes what's going to happen. So I'd love to have you back at some point where we can go into that, and there's so much.
One more thing about those old school guys from New York. After seeing what these legal sports books do, yeah, the legal sports books are legal. Yeah, they pay taxes, but guess what? The old school bookies offered better lines, better service, and just a more straight up approach where those guys, they give you a better chance at winning, believe it or not, than these online legal sports books.
Better chance of getting your legs broken too, but that's another story. Ted, thank you. That was awesome.
Absolutely.
I'll hit you up. We'll get you back on. If you want to talk to me about No Filter, just give me a holler. But I appreciate you coming on. You were absolutely awesome. Let me get this for you here. Right. You big round of applause.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's enough
Let's
applause.
see what these games do, and then we'll talk about them next week.
Awesome. Thanks for stopping in. Watch the rest of the show if you don't mind.
I will. I'll be right here.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for coming.
Take care, guys.
Remember, guys, it's the sportsprofits.com, sports profits on YouTube, and sportsprofits_ on Instagram. All right. I am going to roll right along here, co-host Reese, to our next guest and bring him in. Rob was on 2 weeks ago, or actually a week ago, 2 shows ago, but a week ago. Rob's a big Mets fan. He went to Old Timers Day. I kind of tricked them and hoodwinked some people to come on. Hey, buddy. We're doing good. I was just telling them, I sort of kind of tricked you to come on last week, talk about Old Timers Day, but I knew